Yeah, and you mentioned the payroll. Like I'm seeing projections for like 180 or so million right now, and there's still other things to do. But like I still think the payroll is like I don't even know if it's where the Yankees was last year yet. It probably will get to that point. It's going to be one of the most expensive payrolls in baseball. But yeah, I think people are caught up in 15 years
Right.
and in $765 million. He's not getting that in a year. You know what I mean? Like,
That I think that's important to point out. Like, what is Jason Tatum making with his new contract per
oh
year?
boy. Okay, let's pull this
And do
up.
you think Soto is better than Jason Tatum?
Yes, he is.
I know you.
Um,
That was a trick question because I know how you feel about Tatum.
no, Tatum's great.
No,
He
I
just
know.
just
I'm just playing with
He just gets away with a lot of push-offs. Tatum is making 54 million. He's not even like the most expensive basketball player if he won't be for like a long period of time. Like Tatum's gonna make 54 million next year when the contract kicks in because he's at
you. Right.
34 point. He's in the last year of like that first extension. So
Right.
he's getting 54 next year, then 58, then 60, almost 63 in 27, 28. This
Right.
is why the Celtics owner is selling, by the way.
Right.
Um
Right.
because
So
that team's gonna be hard to keep together.
in
And
that
then by
context,
the way, 67 and
oh
then
my god.
71. Like NBA players are going to be hitting 70s very soon.
So Soto might be underpaid. You know? I mean, if Jason Tatum is making 60 something, and he's great. Like I like Jason Tatum. You know,
Francisco Lindor is definitely underpaid at this point.
at this
Oh,
point.
if you're looking at contracts in the NBA just comparatively, right? There are 16 players that are making at least 50 million next year, at least, right?
Wow.
Like 17, I mean, 15 years and just 50 million straight up per year would be 750.
Right.
Just straight up, right? So you're talking about Soto just making in the 50s for the bulk of this contract, like over 50, but a little, not like a ton over, right? And if you're looking at it, like Kawhi Leonard is making 50 million next year in the NBA still. And the other guys above him who are going to be making 50 or so $1 million, like there's Paul George, there's LeBron, there's Jimmy Butler, Karl Anthony Towns, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Jalen Brown. These are all guys that I would say Juan Soto in baseball is better at than they
20
are at
at
basketball.
26. He's
Right.
26.
Stephen Curry is going to make 59 million next year. He's going to be the highest paid player on an annual basis next year, barring any like extension that could take someone else over that hump. I don't think they will. Next to him, like second and third at 55 and 55 is Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. That's around the territory where Juan Soto is going to be. I think at the height of this, once we see like the final numbers come out, I don't know how much it's going to ascend, but like that's what we're talking about. Embiid, Jokic, Durant is up there at 54-ish. Giannis and Dame both at 54.1, as is Anthony Davis and as is Jason Tatum, as we just mentioned, which was a good barometer. And then when you look at the 26-27 season, Steph Curry is going to be above 60. Nikola Jokic will be at 59. Giannis and Dame will be at 58 and a half. Anthony Davis as well, Tatum as well. Embiid will be at almost 58. Jalen Brown, Bradley Beal, like this is what it's going to take in this country for these elite athletes. Like this is what it is.
So think about it. It's really you're just crystallizing. It's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Think you have Juan Soto locked in for 5 years at 51 million a year for those 5 years. Whatever happens after that,
Before the opt out, yeah.
yeah, but yeah, he can't opt out for five. We have the Mets have him locked in for 5 years at 51 million a year. Whatever happens after that, we'll see. That'll be a whole different market, right? So, I mean, what's the problem? Like, there's no way. I mean, I mean, Cone knows this. You know, he's a money guy. He's like, this is probably nothing. Like, what? Like, I'm not that's that number, that imaginary number of seven. You know, it's almost like it's obviously football is the worst. Nothing's guaranteed. This money is guaranteed, but it's not guaranteed that the Mets will have to pay it if he opts out and goes somewhere else.
Juan Soto, who was a star at 19 years old, like we're called up at 19 and almost won Rookie of the Year. 200 home runs already in his career. His career OPS is 953,
I mean,
which is pretty
the
ridiculous.
swag is ridiculous. I mean,
Yeah,
his stance. He's gonna have a little kid Met fan, you know, pretending to stare down the pitcher after each pitch.
yeah.
I mean, I mean, he's charismatic. In other words, uh, I mean, it's just it's big time. It's big, and like I said, the fact that that the Mets are doing it the right way. They
Hmm.
have. It's not like they just threw money at this guy. They're still making smart baseball moves.
Hmm.
Uh, Plenty of moves to come. I mean, as a Mets fan, you have to be excited. You have to
Yeah,
be.
you have to be, and I wouldn't get caught up in the years. Like I,
No,
especially when it's a 15-year deal like this, like you don't get caught up in what's going to happen in year 15, especially with sports contracts now, even 5-year deals. You're generally paying for like the first 2, 3 years, and then you'll deal with the back end when that time comes, however it looks. Like that's
right.
that's generally how sports business is done now. And you could say for some people, I'm sure that's how it always was philosophically, but I think a lot more people are just figuring out like, hey, you're overpaying for the front end of the deal. Like what Steve Cohen, what the Mets, what everybody wants here is to win now, and then you'll just figure it out later. And he's 26, so ultimately, like what you really care about is those first 5 years, as you mentioned before, any potential opt out. If he opts out, you figure it out from there. If you want to extend him or not, see how the relationship is, see if you've won by that point, how close you are if you haven't. And if he doesn't opt out, then you still have him. And hopefully the relationship is good. You've won and you could just let this thing ride for another, 10 years, or if it's not even 10 years,
And
whatever.
what's 50 million going to be in 10 years? Like things don't stay the same, right?
Yeah.
Like that might be a bargain.
Yeah.
So I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Come
Yeah.
on, man. Like don't let's as Met fans don't entertain the haterism that's going to go on. And I get it. I would do the same thing if
Sure.
another team signed him,
Sure.
but it it's a non-argument.
Sure.
Period.
Yeah. The Mets win today. That's ultimately what it is. And it's the off season, but they won on the field last year and they did it 2 years before that. So we'll see if they can actually get a World Series out of this, which would be their first one in a too long. Too long.
Dodgers are still tough. We know
Yeah,
that.
Dodgers still tough, and we'll see if any other contenders emerge in the National League. But betting wise, I already know like the Mets and Dodgers are the favorites in the National
Yeah, I
League.
think the Mets are second behind the Dodgers right now
Yeah,
in
that
Vegas.
makes sense. That makes sense.